professionals questioning these extremists and terrorists. I have put this program in place for a reason, and that is to better protect the American people. And when we find somebody who may have information regarding a potential attack on America, you bet we're going to detain them. And you bet we're going to question them. Because the American people expect us to find out information, actionable intelligence, so we can help them, help protect them. That's our job. In other words, we got professionals who are trained in this kind of work to get information that'll protect the American people. This government does not torture people. You know, we stick to U.S. law and our international obligations. The techniques that we use have been fully disclosed to appropriate members of the United States Congress. There are highly trained professionals questioning these extremists and terrorists. In other words, we got professionals who are trained in this kind of work to get information that'll protect the American people. And by the way, we have gotten information from these high-value detainees that have helped protect you. And finally, the techniques that we use have been fully disclosed to appropriate members of the United States Congress. The American people expect their government to take action to protect them from further attack. And that's exactly what this government is doing, and that's exactly what we'll continue to do.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you at some point in this interview about the Senate Intelligence Committee report that's coming out sometime next week about the CIA and what it did during your era.
Yeah, I haven't seen the report.
I haven't either. I would expect it will be somewhat critical.
But I'll tell you this. Well, first of all, as I understand, it'll be critical, but there's also going to be a report of a counter report coming out of the agency. Here's what I'm going to say. That we're fortunate to have men and women who work hard at the CIA serving on our behalf. These are patriots. And whatever the report says, if it diminishes their contributions to our country, it is way off base. And I knew the directors, I knew the deputy directors, you know, I knew a lot of the operators. These are good people, really good people, and we're lucky as a nation to have them.
U.S. President Bill Clinton would officially decree the initial war on terror by publishing Presidential Directive 39 on June 21st, 1993. In it, Clinton ensures that the United States can and will extract suspects of terrorism against the United States, even if by force. Under the directive, return of indicted to the U.S. for prosecution, one of the most important directives that was ever implemented in fighting the war on terror, while also being one of the most harrowing statements ever issued in U.S. history, that would witness multiple instances of inhumane torture and illicit kidnapping, would be the following. Quote, if we do not receive adequate cooperation from a state that harbors a terrorist whose extradition we are seeking, we shall take appropriate measures to induce cooperation. Return of suspects by force may be effected without the cooperation of the host government, consistent with the procedures outlined in NSD 77, which shall remain in effect, end quote. In essence, the current rendition program would not necessarily need the approval of a host government. The initial country which the Clinton administration focused on was obvious: Egypt, home to some of the world's most notorious Islamic fundamentalist groups, such as Gamma Islamiyah and Egyptian Islamic Jihad. The program was in response to a previous attack inside the United States, the bombing of the North Tower at the World Trade Center in February of '93. The primary suspects were many: Hezbollah, Palestinian Liberation Organization, and Fatah. However, intelligence reports shared coming in that an individual named Abdul Basit Karim, also known as Ramzi Youssef, was a suspect. This due to the remarkable capture of one of the bombing suspects, Mohammed Salameh, who went back to get a security deposit on the truck which was carrying the bomb. The tie to Egypt was Omar Abdul Rahman, known as the Blind Sheikh, who was the imam at the Al-Faruq Mosque in Brooklyn, as well as the Masjid al-Salim in New Jersey City. It was next door to the Al-Kifa Refugee Center, which was a base for Afghan Mujahideen during the 1979 Afghan-Soviet War, while it was also partly funded by the Central Intelligence Agency. The rendition program would capture its first suspect in September of 1995, Talat Faoud Qasim, an Egyptian-born, high-ranking member of Gamma Islamiyah. Qasim was captured while in Croatia, while under a directive from another Islamic fundamentalist organization to head to the jihad going on in Bosnia. He had lived in hiding in Denmark, living with 7 others. Qasim had been sentenced to death while in absentia by Egyptian courts for his role in the Egyptian President Anwar Sadat's assassination. Qasim would be arrested by the Croatian security services, the Security and Intelligence Agency, along with officials from the CIA, ran a covert joint operation in capturing Qasim, in which he had then held in detention facility located on a U.S. vessel off the port of Rabat. Afterwards, Qasim was then handed off to Egyptian authorities, where he was never seen or heard from again, most likely executed by Egyptian security services. Meanwhile, the Egyptian Organization for Human Rights had asked the Egyptian government to at least confirm Qasim's death, and according to Hafez Abu Saida, the Secretary General of the FOHR, quote, "We asked the government to tell us what happened, to answer whether or not he had been tortured to death. We had received information that he had died in custody. They never responded," end quote. The rendition program would also be acknowledged by Hosni Mubarak, the Egyptian president, at least on face value of its agenda. Mubarak had seemingly nothing to become alarmed about. After Sadat's assassination, most of the high-level Egyptian fundamentalists were expelled to such places as Afghanistan, Pakistan, Indonesia, Bosnia, and Croatia, even inside the United States. The Egyptian State Security Investigation Services, or the SSI, had rounded up by the hundreds suspected Islamists, and some were brutally tortured. In 1997, the CIA would construct the Counter-Intelligence Center, which would become an agency unto itself, assisting in the collection of information and even capturing known suspected terrorists here and abroad. According to a report by Dana Priest entitled Foreign Network at Front of CIA's Terror Flight, which was authored on November 18, 2005, in the report, CTCs exist in more than 24 countries, including Uzbekistan, Indonesia, France, which is headed by the DGSC, French General Intelligence, British, German, and Canadian, Austrian intelligence agencies. They are financed mostly by the agency and employ some of the best espionage technology the CIA has to offer. They also have computers linked to the CIA's central databases and access to highly classified intercepts. They are used by the CIA and the foreign services to jointly make daily decisions on when and how to apprehend suspects of terrorism, whether to whisk them off to other countries for interrogation and detention, and how to disrupt Al-Qaeda's logistical and financial support. They are distinct from the CIA black sites or secret detention centers. CIA Director George Tenet would later claim that the rendition program under the CTC were relatively successful in that over 70 renditions took place, with at least over a dozen suspects were captured in this manner before the September 11th attacks. Although CTC Alex Station Chief Michael Scheuer would dispute the number and claim that well over 40 were captured in the rendition program. The program was mostly unknown to the American public, since Presidential Directive 39 was still classified. Although local judicial agencies, such as the National Security Agency, whom partnered with the CIA and its CTC to help conduct these operations abroad, in the general premise, the highly secretive operations were only known to those involved in them. With rendition operations still in its initial stages, U.S. officials took the necessary steps to give it some legitimacy by implementing regulations against torture. Under Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Chapter 113C, Section 234A, quote, whoever outside the United States commits or attempts to commit torture shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. And if death results to any person from conduct prohibited by this subsection, shall be punished by death or imprisoned for any terms of years or for life, end quote. Under CIA Directive Tenet, however, the rendition program would take a turn for the more inhumane, and immediately after the attacks of September 11, 2001, it would become a reoccurring exploitation which went outside judicial boundaries and which led to some of the worst abuses of power that saw who claimed to protect and serve our nation become the very monsters that their captors were characterized to be. And some of the most abhorrent abuses took place at sites like Abu Ghraib, even in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. It made the rendition program utterly useless to the dissenting public's eyes, since most of those who were victims to said rendition were not even declared terrorists by the United States. John C. Yoo and Jay S. Bybee, two senior officials in the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel, provided the legal groundwork that allowed American interrogators to use sleep deprivation, waterboarding, and other torture methods against terror suspects. The memo would be, in effect, a torture memo in which you gave U.S. law enforcement agencies to conduct legal methods of torture as described in the memo. He would also draft a memo to the Department of Defense on March 14, 2003, concluding that federal laws against torture, assault, and maiming would not apply to the overseas interrogation of terror suspects. It would give the CTC and other agencies involved in counterterrorism overseas carte blanche to conduct physical and mental stress test exercises, which included waterboarding, sleep deprivation, sexual abuse, slapping, punching, rape, feces smearing, and in one case, murder of Mandel al-Jamadi. In 2005, according to a listing made publicly available from the Department of Defense, there were 775 detainees brought to Guantanamo Bay Prison as of November 18, 2019. There are now only 41. As of the detainees were released due to no evidence whatsoever that they were involved in any act of terrorism against the United States or involvement in any terrorist organization. After the abuse scandals, the White House reacted immediately to the reports of torture from agents employed at the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, in which Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice made a statement in 2005, quote, the United States has not transported anyone and will not transport anyone to a country when we believe he will be tortured. Where appropriate, the United States seeks assurances that transferred persons will not be tortured, end quote. This remark would seem utterly hypocritical given to the evidence of the contrary. However, according to a report by the European Parliament report of 2007, the CIA had conducted 1,245 flights, many of them to destinations where suspects could face torture, in violation of Article 3 of the United Nations Convention Against Torture. In 2009, under the Obama administration, the extraordinary rendition program would be not allowed to be continued. However, it would be continued with more oversight in the shadows. There would be multiple cases of wrongful detention. This was a common occurrence with the rendition program, since most of those captured were based on intelligence reports from third parties, Afghan and Pakistan tribesmen who gave U.S. intelligence agents false information due to the fact that they simply wished to collect a reward or get rid of an opposing tribesman. This led to many questions the validity of having such a program to continue. However, the Obama administration would not have it eliminated. In fact, it would give later a green light to even military personnel to become involved in kidnapping members suspected of being involved with the Taliban or Al-Qaeda to be transported on private jets, even using foreign commercial jets to become transport hubs for these prisoners. Obama had lied about ending the program. Most of these prisoners would be held in CIA detention facilities overseas called black sites, which were located in 8 countries. But in 2017, it was reported that a total of 54 countries had participated in the CIA's rendition and torture programs. Some of them had even conducted internal reviews of the abuses held in these countries' secret detention centers. The pressure was on the Obama administration. And on January 22nd, 2009, President Obama issued Executive Order 13491, which required the CIA to close as expeditiously as possible any detention facility that it currently operates and not operate any such detention facility in the future. The executive order prohibited any U.S. government employee from using interrogation techniques often other than those in the Army Field Manual 2-22.3 on human intelligence collector operations. One such detainee suspect, Muhammadu Al-Slahi, was one of the many victims of the CIA's rendition program. He was suspected of being involved with Al-Qaeda and providing members of the Hamburg cell, 9/11 suspects, with logistical support and funding. He was sent to a CIA black site in Jordan and ultimately became a prisoner in Guantanamo Bay, serving 14 years there without a single charge. He was freed on October 17, 2016, to Mauritania, located in North Africa. They did not give him back his passport. He remains there. However, after all that he would endure over the years, he still managed to forgive his captors, something which was not reciprocated by anyone involved in the CIA's extraordinary rendition operations or from Guantanamo Bay. Linnie England, a former U.S. Army reserve who was stationed at Abu Ghraib. While there, some of the most notable grotesque acts of abuse became worldwide after photos taken by a fellow servicewoman at the prisoner release. The many instances of those abuse would become available for the media to showcase to the public. England would agree to plead guilty to 4 counts of maltreating prisoners, 2 counts of conspiracy, and 1 count of dereliction of duty. She would be given a retrial, however, but still found guilty. She would only serve less than 17 months before being released in 2007. In 2012, she would be granted an interview in which she stated, quote, "The Iraqi lives are better. They got the better end of the deal. They weren't innocent. They were trying to kill us. And you want me to apologize to them? It's like saying sorry to the enemy," end quote. The enemy wasn't in Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere else. They were right here inside the United States in plain sight.